In December of 2023, I created a video about the current state of modern Pokemon titles. I made it to essentially discuss my issue with an incredibly popular and profitable franchise charging full or close to full price for a game that cuts corners on gameplay and graphics to increase profit. And the way I presented this topic was by tying it to something I love more than most things. Football. I have mentioned my relationship with football on a few occasions, but I don't think many of you are aware of how deep that relationship truly is. Let me put it this way. I am willing to watch the Panthers play the Jets when both teams are 4-9 and mathematically eliminated from playoff contention just for the love of the game. Sundays for me aren't sacred because of some holy inclination, but because I live and breathe this sport. Because of this, you would think a football simulation game where I can play as my beloved New York Giants would be exactly the game I would love to play, right? Not even a fucking little bit. When it comes to Madden, I'm gonna go ahead and flag their ass for intentional grounding. When I use the term poverty franchise, I don't necessarily mean financially because these games make EA money hand over fist. But when it comes to gameplay, innovation, and most importantly, effort, I can't think of a better descriptor than poverty. I don't understand how these franchises that make more money every year get worse. This is a company with unlimited resources, money, and time, with the fervor of a narcoleptic sloth. I don't know if it's because it's challenging to make a game every year that is constantly pushing the barrier of what a sports simulation game could be, or if it's because they're building these games on what is essentially wishful thinking. Football is special because it's dynamic, strategic, unpredictable, and beautiful. They took all of these qualities and flushed them down the toilet. This is America's favorite pastime. Okay, maybe America's second favorite pastime. This isn't Titanfall. The worst part is there's honestly zero excuses. This isn't an indie company pushing out a game because it's all they have. This is EA. This is a company worth plenty of money, with plenty of help from the NFL to make their dusty-ass football simulator. And with no competition to contend with, they have zero pressure to innovate or evolve. They simply halfback dive every year because they've monetized loyalty to the NFL brand. Am I loyal to the New York Giants? Absolutely. Am I loyal to the NFL? Unfortunately so. But to EA, not a fucking shot. I owe zero loyalty to a company that doesn't give a shit anymore, and I'm not gonna defend mediocrity simply because Odell Beckham Jr. is on the cover. So you know what? Let's do it one more time. Madden is a poverty franchise. Much like Pokemon, I think it would be a bit duplicitous to just write off the whole series because of the quality of the titles we've seen recently. Now, while I'd love to give everyone a wonderful autistic history lesson on the origin of football simulators spanning back to when I was barely a thought in my father's testicles, that'd take way too long and would kind of distract from the point I'm trying to make. The years I really want to focus on are the 2000s to modern day, primarily because the 2000s marked the beginning of the Madden game's evolution into what they are today, but also because I wasn't alive or conscious when the ones from the 80s and the 90s were created. Before Madden became what we could call a cash grab, EA Sports used to put out innovative and cutting-edge football simulators. Rather than each game feeling like a roster update with minor changes, the games felt like new experiences. Most of this, though, in my opinion, is because of the presentation of the games. In that 2000s to 2010s era of Madden, presentation was less about graphic fidelity, even though the graphics for Madden, especially for the time, were pretty good. It was more about creating an immersive experience. The games felt like actual NFL broadcasts. The attention to detail, even in aspects as broad as the commentary, was unmatched. In modern times, this commentary could feel basic with a lot of repeated phrases, but even now when playing this, a lot of the commentary felt incredibly dynamic. Intros to games were more realistic and exciting. Seeing the snow pile up on Lambeau Field, watching fans buy their tickets, seeing quarterbacks warm up with announcers talking about how they performed thus far made you feel like you were witnessing a night of Sunday Night Football. I think what stands out the most is how the developers weren't as afraid to experiment with mechanics, physics, and adaptive AI. They were more willing to introduce features that would make the game more than just an arcade experience. Quick example, hit stick. In 2001, Madden introduced the hit stick, which is where you would use the right stick to aim at a defender and just fucking wallop them. It was a super minor but cool risk versus reward feature. If you got a good hit stick, you could force a fumble, but if you miss, you lose a lot of momentum and are more likely to give up more yards. A small feature, yes, but one that added a whole new dimension to playing defense. Subtle changes like this made these games feel more authentic, strategic, and not only rewarding, but satisfying to play. To complement little features like this, I'm not sure if it's just because I'm older with more football knowledge and video game experience, but I truly feel like the older games were much harder. Seriously, I watched Fookuh play Madden on his channel, and despite him having pretty good football knowledge and being a good gamer himself, he couldn't even get the ball to Megatron without getting picked off at least a dozen times. I didn't even see the play.
I did. I'm a neural net processor. I'm a learning computer.
No, Dan Campbell was wide open. Dan Campbell was wide open. He was literally open across the middle. All you had to do was throw it to him, and that was the first down. But you threw it to Megatron in double coverage. There were so many black jerseys there. And you said, you know what? Blood's got it.
I think that's part of the charm of the old Madden games. You had to be tactical, which led to an overwhelming satisfaction when you mastered running a functional offense or defense. On the flip side though, you could also very easily just jump into a game with your dad and have fun. But if you wanted to go sacrilegious on some freaky demented shit, you had to understand the intricacies of the game, how to properly lead receivers, or even just read defensive schemes. And a lot of this is because it just had to be good, right? Back then, we were still getting other football simulators, most notably with Blitz the League, which is still looked back on fondly by so many football fans and even players. Was it realistic? Am I realistic? No, but it was fun and goofy and even had a pretty interesting story mode, which back then was kind of out of the norm for a sports game. The reason I bring this up is that Madden wasn't the only player on that field. Madden just happened to be the quarterback. The shift from innovation to stagnation can largely be traced back to the moment EA Sports essentially became the sole distributor of NFL video games. The exclusive licensing deal they struck with the NFL in 2004 sealed Madden's monopoly on the genre, effectively eliminating competition. Now, this may have seemed like a win for Madden fans at the time. No more worrying about annual releases of other football games, right? Wrong. In reality, it created a breeding ground for complacency. Now that EA was the only player on the field, they no longer had to push boundaries in the same way. Where other developers would have innovated to stand out, Madden began to coast on its name alone. Year after year, instead of fresh ideas, we got incremental updates. Presentations that were once cutting edge began to feel recycled. Instead of evolving the immersive NFL broadcast experience, EA started to rest on its laurels, offering little more than roster updates, new player animations, and in the end, the occasional tweak to the gameplay engine. Oh boy howdy, let's just switch from a physics-based engine that works completely fine to a stupid animation-based engine. Yeah, that's sure to get the fans fucking pumped. The real-world NFL continued to evolve with changes to rules, speed, and the overall culture. But for some godforsaken fucking reason, Madden just refused to try, and honestly, I'm tired of it. A lot of times with these annual franchise games, there's a pretty clear indication of an immediate downgrade. With Pokemon, it was X and Y. With Call of Duty, it was Ghosts. With Assassin's Creed, it was the very first game. All jokes aside, I think rather than there being an extremely clear loser after a crowd of winners, I think that Madden's decline was more slow and gradual. I think I can kind of pinpoint it to be somewhere around, like, year. But talking about that post-2016 era will effectively show everyone watching why these games are so buns now. Mostly I want to focus on what is possibly the worst Madden game to date, Madden 25. And no, not that Madden 25, this Madden 25. I don't know what game series is worse at naming Call of Duty, Madden, or Mario. Madden 25 is pretty much the culmination of all of modern Madden's issues. By now, fans know what to expect with a new Madden release, and that's exactly the problem. Now, I played this on PC, so my experience may differ, but to state, I do have a 3060 and a fantastic CPU. My PC is no slouch, and I can pretty much run any game I throw at it with high graphics and stable frame rates, but for some f***ing reason, Madden could not be any more unoptimized. This straight up runs worse than launch day Starfield. Menus are slow and clunky, the game will halt every here and there after a play seemingly because it feels like it, and graphics will just decide if and when they want to glitch out or not. If you want to turn your settings up and really get the full Madden experience with lighting and populated fans in the crowd, you're gonna be chugging. The reason this twists my gonads is that we had the same technology on older hardware, and it just worked beautifully every single fucking time. I'm not gonna sit here and argue semantics over whether the newer Maddens have more whatever, and that's why it doesn't run very well. I don't really care. This is unacceptable. And you know me, I will bitch about graphics and performance all day, but I'm still the same jagoff that wanted to play OG Dark Souls on the Xbox 360. I can live with bad graphics or even poor performance. That's fine, as long as the game is fun. The problem is, the game isn't fun, and there's so much wrong with this trash that I don't even know where to start. It doesn't matter what kind of scheme you run. Cover 2, nickel blitz, Tampa 2, you name it. Your defenders act like they just learned what a football was during warm-ups. Safeties get beat deep with no situational awareness. Linebackers don't cover zones. They kinda just vibe in the middle of the field like they're buffering in real time. I thought I was just really bad at defense, but from scrolling through Reddit, it seems that I'm not alone. Then, on the flip side, playing against AI defenders feels like you're playing against the 07 Patriots. Cornerbacks turn into fucking acrobats and just know where the ball is, even if their head is facing the opposite direction. Even when you make the right reads and calls, it doesn't feel like you're in control. It feels like you're begging the game to work properly. Football is chess, not chance. I miss when Madden challenged you. Older games forced you to read the defense, adjust routes, and audible at the line. Now, you can call the same slant route 7 times in a row and the CPU will still get cooked like it's never seen a hot route before. People still use the same broken tight end attack and fucking RPO plays. You'd think that with over 25 years of development, they could figure out how to teach their AI to learn from what the user is doing. But no, they can't. Or more likely they won't, because actual improvement doesn't move Ultimate Team packs. A huge problem I have with the gameplay in particular is the switch to animation-based gameplay as opposed to physics-based gameplay. You can tell me all day that these animations are realistic, but it's less dynamic and especially frustrating when you need to make a play, but the game doesn't give you the right catching animation, so you lose the down and have to punt. It makes the game feel more cinematic in the worst way. Same with fumbles. Fumbles seem to happen because of convenience, not logic. It doesn't feel like playing football. It feels like watching EA's idea of football play out. Where I really want to focus is Superstar and Franchise, but really because those are my favorite 2 modes to play. Let's start with Franchise, because I think that's the mode in particular I put the most time into. The reason I like Franchise mode is that I think it's fun to rebuild a really shitty team and make a dynasty out of it. The best part is, the Giants are already shitty, so I can rebuild the Giants the way I think is best. The storylines are not dynamic in the slightest. It's such a dry and linear experience. Players still develop the same. Coordinators don't mean f*** all, and the coaching trees don't matter all that much. Hiring coordinators could be way cooler and more dynamic, but instead, they don't do anything other than give your players a slight percentage boost in games. And even then, it doesn't make a difference. Contract negotiations feel like a date with the fucking DMV, where players just randomly decide if they want to play with you or not. Even if you have all green meters and give them a good deal, they will say they want to play for a new team. Drafting is just as lifeless too, with regurgitated prospect dialogue and no stakes whatsoever. The only thing that immerses me in Franchise mode is the depression I feel watching Franchise mode's potential being fumbled year after year. And Superstar mode is unfortunately the same exact story. The Combine is still the same minigames. 40-yard dash, bench press, broad jump, yeah. And the draft pretty much goes the same every single time. If you play quarterback, you're going to one of like 3 teams. If you're running back, have fun in Cincinnati. If you're playing cornerback, have fun in Minnesota. This one especially bothers me because I've retried this about 40 times and I've gotten the Vikings every single time. Storylines are still the same too. Oh boy, it's gonna rain this week. What are you gonna do? Ooh, Oakley wants to sponsor sponsor you. Fucking cool, but guess what? It doesn't affect the gameplay in any way, shape, or form. And all of this would maybe even be okay for most people. But there is one more thing I want to bring up. Earlier this year, Nakey Jakey uploaded an incredible video about his journey to hit 10K in Premiere on Counter-Strike 2. In that video, he goes over the incredibly predatory practices of gambling on cases. Madden has the same thing. Madden Ultimate Team. Madden Ultimate Team is something that a few of the other sports games do, most notably FIFA with their card building mode, which I don't know the name of. Basically, in Madden Ultimate Team, or MUT, you rip packs and pull players out of them to build what is essentially a super team. Then you take that team and play against other players for... Super Bowl? Glory? I don't fucking know. I've never actually played this mode. Now... is this pay to win? Oh my god, no fucking question. But that's not even the part that's scummy to me. The issue is, much like our dear friend Nakey Jakey described, you can sell these cards at an auction house for Madden coins, or whatever the fuck they're called. Now, to a lot of Madden players, this won't feel as deranged as CS2, because in CS2, it's not real dollars, and in Madden, it's like Tom Brady bucks or something. So it's not like real money, it's fake money, and it tricks your brain into thinking, I didn't spend 20 real dollars, I spent 20 Tom Brady bucks. But let's not kid ourselves. Madden at this point is no longer a football game. It's a digital card game with a football theme. EA has learned that they can make a metric load of money via Madden Ultimate Team. So now 90% of the polish, attention, and development effort goes into Ultimate Team. Animations, engine tweaks, presentation, balance, all of it takes a backseat to monetization. And look, I'm not claiming to be an expert at the seedy underbelly of video game microtransactions, but when you have pay-to-win mechanics in a game that charges $70 at launch, you're not selling a football simulator. You're selling a predatory business model disguised as a Sunday tradition. And maybe that's all this series is. Terrible games with horrible business practices that constantly overcharge fans with underbaked and over-monetized bullshit. A feeling that is all too familiar to gamers. And at this point, I don't know if there's any hope left. Now, I waited until I could play the brand new Madden 26, to write and record this section. And now that I put several hours into it, I think I've collected my thoughts. After the ghastly Madden 25, EA actually needed to put effort into their game this time, and not for no reason either. You see, as I mentioned earlier, EA has owned the license to make Madden games since the early 2000s, but this year the license to make those games is going to expire. Now, the NFL can choose to renew that license, but it can also choose not to. In layman's terms, this means that if this Madden was rated and reviewed as poorly as the last, the NFL could take away EA's rights to make Madden games. Because of this, a lot of longtime Madden fans and critics were actually trying to incite boycotts to get the NFL to finally make a change. Now, the game still isn't even fully released to the public yet, but I don't think any boycotts went into effect, and if anyone was to boycott this game, it should have been me. My biggest op is on the cover. But let's get to the million-dollar question. Much like Pokemon Legends Arceus was to that series, did Madden 26 encapsulate what made me love Madden when I was younger? Maybe. There's a lot to unpack with this, but let's start with what I like. I think a lot of things have been drastically improved. Team walkouts feel more dynamic. The fields can change depending on the jerseys you pick. And they even included halftime highlights that feel more interesting to watch than in previous Madden games. That is when the halftime highlights actually fucking work. I think there's still the problem with the animation-based engine, but it's pretty much a fucking pipe dream to get that taken care of, so there's no use in complaining about it. There's also the new Whiteout and Heavy Rain games that are pretty cool when my game isn't lagging beyond reality. The Whiteout Snow games, you can barely see anything, which I think makes it cool, but they need to turn the fumble rate down exponentially. I played one Whiteout game, and I think my team fumbled at least 6 times, while the opponent didn't fumble once. But I think the biggest changes are with my 2 favorite modes, Franchise and Superstar. Starting with Superstar. I think this mode in particular received the most updates. On my first playthrough as quarterback, I was a little disappointed to see that the Combine hasn't evolved. It's still the same minigames, and sometimes my knees are just not there. Whatever. Graphical glitches are just par for the course for Madden. A big change is this thing they call your sphere of influence, which is a bunch of people important to your character that provide unlocks. I thought this was going to be like maybe just your coaches and your star receiver, but no, it's like your coaches, your offensive line, your coordinators, your running back, a fucking dancer, a tattoo artist, and a hacker? How many NFL players have hacker friends? Like, is this a common trend? Anyways, each week you'll get a choice where you can do one activity or the other, and depending on that activity, it could raise or lower your influence for certain characters. This is cool for about 60 seconds. After that, I kind of just stopped caring and picked whatever one gave me the better unlocks. What I think I enjoy the most about the Superstar mode is the new gameplay modifiers. Each game will have different gameplay modifiers that can change how it's played. This at least gives the game some replayability, and I very much appreciate that. Franchise mode is largely the same, with the big update here being coach archetypes. This changes gameplay ever so slightly, but changes it enough to where there is a bit more replay value. You can be a more offensive or defensive-minded coach, or even a coach who's better at developing players. Coordinators also matter a little bit more here, but quite honestly, I was more invested in the Superstar mode this go around, so my thoughts on franchise mode are a little more raw. Even with the major updates this game provides, this game is still not where it should be. What holds this game back is everything that's been recycled. I'm still hoping for the same catch animations. My defenders don't know how to cover the flat. And why the f are my teammates lifting weights in full pads? The game still lags beyond reality sometimes. Why is my cornerback playing receiver? Boy, you know you're not Travis Hunter. And these stats are not correct or accurate at all. We still don't have voice acting. And yeah, I get it. Voice acting costs money. And when it comes to sports games, it's usually never good.
Who have thought
About what?
that a young buck like you could actually do the right thing and avoid getting his sorry butt kicked out the game?
But come on, this shouldn't be hard. Look, I like some of the things we're doing here, but does this really warrant a new $70 game? The best way I can draw a comparison to why this is so frustrating is to compare this to another game that released this year. Elden Ring Night Rain. Look, I understand this is gonna sound f***ing crazy, but give me 60 seconds and I'll clue you in. Madden 26 is a game built on recycled assets, gameplay, and ideas. It borrows a lot from its predecessors, but also tries new ideas. It's mostly what I would consider a forever game, where you can continue to play the game as long as you please. Elden Ring Night Rain is a game built on recycled assets, gameplay, and ideas. It borrows a lot from its predecessors, but also tries new ideas. It's mostly what I would consider a forever game, where you can continue to play the game as long as you please. Now, Elden Ring isn't a yearly release franchise, and FromSoft is certainly more respected than EA, but I think the same principle applies here, because there is a stark difference between the two games, and that's regarding price. Night Rain is a $40 game. Night Rain is infinitely more replayable, fun, polished, and exciting. Madden 26 is bugged out, barely finished, and built on old ideas, and this game was $70 and that's just for the base version. If you wanted early access and more mutt garbage, you're shelling out nearly 100 bones. And look, I'm not trying to compare Night Rain and Madden because that would be f***ing ridiculous and even blasphemous. But my point is that there's not a single excuse. EA can't claim they're limited by time. They've been making the same game for 2 decades. They can't claim they're limited by hardware. This is the same generation that gave us Cyberpunk's comeback arc, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Night Rain in the same goddamn year. They can't claim budget constraints because they're still raking in millions every month from Ultimate Team alone. The money is there. The time is there. The tech is there. The only thing missing is the will to try. And I want to make one thing very clear. Better than Madden 25 is not a win. The bar was in hell, or maybe Cleveland, I don't know. Just because Madden 26 is less broken, less lazy, and marginally more playable, doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's passable. And passable isn't good enough, not when we're paying full price. Yes, Madden 26 is kind of trying, I'll give it that. It tries new things in Superstar mode. It tries to make the presentation matter again. It tries to add weather effects, halftime shows, new coaching systems, and modifiers. But it all still feels like it's layered on top of a broken foundation. Yes, maybe this apple is good, but you can't use that excuse when the entire tree itself is rotten. If EA was building on progress, that'd be one thing. But what they're doing is building on rot. And when your core gameplay is still the same, when your animations are still glitchy, and your AI still plays like it has an Antonio Brown amount of CTE, no amount of new features is going to make your game feel fresh. And what's wild is we've seen them do better. The 2000s weren't perfect, but those games had soul. They had experimentation. They were ambitious in a way this series hasn't felt in over a decade. And it's not like modern players don't care about realism, strategy, or immersion. We do. We just want it done with some care, with attention, with a sense that the people making this game give a singular fuck about not only football, but their fans. But Madden today still feels like it's made by people who don't love the sport. They love the license. Madden 26 is a step. One step. A singular stride in the right direction after sprinting backwards for years. But a step isn't a victory lap. A step isn't salvation. A step is just the bare fucking minimum. If the NFL decides to renew EA's license, then I hope this year's game becomes the blueprint for change. Not because it's great, but because it could be. Because somewhere buried underneath the shit, there's a genuinely great football game waiting to be unearthed. But if they don't renew that license, if someone else finally gets a shot at making an NFL sim, then EA only has itself to blame. Madden 26 isn't the game that saved the series. It's the game that showed us just how far it still has to go.
They're presenting a lot of old shit that's been in the game as new shit. It's the same cycle, bro. Look, next Madden 25 didn't have a feature. Madden 26 is gonna have that feature, but that feature is 10 years old. Like,